Okay. You know, there's a lot of people that aren't here. They're going to miss out on this. They're going to hear what they missed out on. I think you're going to see an iconic program today. One of its kind, especially for this area, where Tuskegee came, where World War II came at the end, our soldiers came home. They started families, they started a community, they built something special. The school wasn't even there when Riverton was built. But everything began to happen after World War II. And you're going to hear from Tuskegee Airmen. You're going to hear from some people from the school, because they have an amazing program that goes on here now. You're going to hear from the Harlem Cultural Archives, which does amazing things for our community. And you're going to hear from the leadership of our Scout Troop. And you just saw some of them, a good representation of the fine young people that we're building, growing, who will be our leaders of tomorrow. So we thank you for coming. If I didn't introduce myself, my name is Marc Whiten. I am the chairman of the Scout Troop, and I'm president of the Tri-State Tuskegee Airmen Group, Claude B there. So I just want to welcome you all. And I thought the best way to welcome you all was to start you off with what I think is a pretty exciting 5-minute video. It gives you a capsulated history of the airmen in a language that our young people may appreciate.
7 surviving airmen got a congressional gold medal, but the great win was fighting institutional racism. They wouldn't settle. Fighting 2 fights, one at home, one overseas for democracy. Hitler in Germany and Jim Crow in my society. America, I'm in the air willing to sacrifice my life, but come home and you condone not giving me equal rights. Fighting 2 fights, one at home, one overseas for democracy. Hitler in Germany and Jim Crow in my society. America, I'm in the air willing to sacrifice my life, but come home and you condone not giving me equal rights, man.
Many of the airmen found themselves wanting to go fly. In my conversation with some of them, they said they had seen planes fly overhead, and they said, that is where I want to be. And they wanted to disprove that philosophy from the military that said, we cannot fly. They said they can. Charles Anderson had flown across country prior to 1930s with an associate who was not a pilot. So Charles Anderson flew across. He was the only pilot in this 2-seater that flew across country and back. His associate was a financier, so he had nothing to do with flying. He went along for the ride, and I guess to provide funding. Shortly after that flight, he took a flight that was also a groundbreaker, flying round trip to the Caribbean. So there, he was a well-known pilot, but not just to the military. They didn't know anything about him. When it came time to think about what was happening in the world situation, the war coming, Roosevelt decided that we don't have enough pilots. We were severely short in pilots for the United States. So he started a civilian pilot training program in 1938 that opened the door for anyone who wanted to fly to learn how to fly. In 1939, it became an official act, and it opened the door. In 1940 rather, he passed the Selective Service Act, which was the first time that there was something a statement that said anyone who wanted to join this service had the right to join, regardless of race or anything else. So that opened the door for the military to accept blacks into their circle, if you want to call it that. There were still no black pilots. They started a program at the urging of many of the civil rights organizations, and that picked several colleges that were black colleges, Tuskegee being one of them, to have a pilot training program. The door was opened. Tuskegee had a program that was run by Chief Anderson at that time. And to spur it on, Mrs. Roosevelt, Eleanor Roosevelt, paid a visit to Tuskegee. It was to Tuskegee, Alabama. It wasn't Tuskegee Air Base yet. And she wanted to prove that blacks could fly. And she was so determined to do that that she had Chief Anderson give her a flight. There's only room enough for 2 in the plane. So her security people said, I don't think that's a good idea, and I'm putting it mildly. But she said, I'm going on the flight. And she took a flight. It wasn't a simple flight around the airfield. She wanted a longer flight. So they were in the air quite a while, much to the dismay of her security team. When she came back down, she made sure that a picture was taken with her, Chief Anderson, and the plane. And she took that picture back to Washington and showed it to her husband and said, they can fly. So this theory that they cannot fly is not correct. Also, fostering that idea was the NAACP and the Pullman's Association that was going to, they wanted to spur more flights, more involvement with the blacks in the military, and to work on addressing segregation. And they came out with an ultimatum that said, if something is not done, we're going to have a march on Washington. And they were looking at 100,000 black men coming to Washington. Within a week, there were some changes made. So he decided, I'm not going to do the march. I delayed the march, but we're still going to keep an eye on it. Thanks to Eleanor Roosevelt, they selected Tuskegee as the place to go. It already had a field. It already had a program that was very successful. The weather was right, and she brought financiers to Tuskegee to work on getting funding to build an airport that would be able to be training. And then Tuskegee, Alabama became the training part for the 99th Pursuit Squadron, which was started in 1941. The first class had 13 individuals in it. The prerequisite is that you had to have college education, you had to be in the top of your class, physically fit, so you were the creme de la creme to get in there. Even then, the military were certain that they were going to fail. They had a quota system. Only so many would be allowed into the program. So of the 13 that in the first class, only 5 graduated. Those 5 went on to become leaders. One of them was Benjamin O. Davis, Jr. He became the first black general in the Air Force. That program blossomed, much to the dismay of the U.S. military. And they still had the quota system, so they had difficulty getting their cadets to pass the program. The qualifications were so stringent, a few of them had said that those that didn't make it through the Tuskegee program would have passed with flying colors in any other program. It was that stringent to try and have them not succeed. More cadets were trained and graduated, and eventually they had enough to build a squadron. In 1943, they finally got their chance to fight. They were sent to Anzio, to Tunisia, to fight. The planes they used were old P-40s. If you've ever seen old movies with the Flying Tigers fighting in China before the war, those are the same planes they used. Those were the planes they were given to use. And in many cases, they were given planes that were obsolete, that didn't have all the parts, so they scavenged parts from a few planes to make one that worked. During their time in Tunisia fighting and supporting troops in Anzio, along with other squadrons flying the same plane, but in better shape, they exemplified how well they fought. Some people you speak to about the Tuskegee Airmen, their story is that they were so good because they were trained longer. The flip side of that is they were trained longer because none of the United States people wanted them to come and fight with them. They did not want them in their units. So they kept them over here training longer and longer and longer until they finally got their chance to go fight in 1943. And this is after the first graduating class graduated in 1942. So there was a long time and a reason for that extra training, which they didn't need because they had passed everything. But because of their excellence in 1943, in Tunisia, and North Africa, the 15th Air Force, flying out of Europe and out of England, was having difficulty being protected as they flew missions over Germany. The Air Force, the fighters that were protecting them, thought it was more important for them to fly off and get what they call an ace. How many planes can I down? So they would leave the bombers unprotected. They flew off. And each bomber, a B-17, this is a much smaller model, of course, all right? It had a crew of 10, bristled with machine guns, 50 caliber machine guns, which the Army Air Corps thought would be invincible, especially if they flew in formation. Their formation was a box, and their guns would overlap and protect them from anywhere. The thing they didn't count on was that the German fighters had cannons on their fighters, which had a much longer range than the 50 caliber machine guns on the bombers. So the Germans would just sit back and take shots at them out of range. And their tactic was first take out the armament, then take out the fuel tanks. So each time a group of bombers went out, they would lose at least 50% of their bombers. So if you're thinking in a formation, they flew 40 bombers and they lost 10. That's 100 men went down every time they flew out. It was significantly more. And they said, we cannot sustain these losses anymore. They thought about discontinuing the saturation bombing. Then they decided, we'll give the Tuskegee Airmen a chance. Benjamin O. Davis said, we have an opportunity here that we can again show the world that we are excellent fighters, we're excellent pilots. So your job is to protect those bombers at all cost. No matter what, you don't leave the bombers. You stay with them no matter what happens, and you protect them for whatever they're going through. They followed that model. And pretty soon the Germans found out, gee, they didn't leave, they stayed there. So they eventually said, we're just going to have to go in and try it. And that's when the Tuskegee Airmen, their excellence in fighting and flying and maneuverability came to show itself. They were given new fighters, which are P-51s, which was the best fighter that we had at that time. They had a top speed of 450 miles an hour, which is significantly faster. It was more maneuverable. It was user-friendly, in their own words. And because of their maneuverability and their superior training, they were able to accomplish much more. They lost fewer bombers than any other squadron in the Army Air Corps. It has been said they never lost one. That's not quite true, but they lost fewer than any other squadron protecting the bombers. Benjamin O. Davis was quite a man himself. He had quite a bit of training. He went through West Point and graduated. What many people don't realize is that when he went through West Point, no one spoke to him for 4 years. The only time he communicated was when he was working in class, and it had to do with his studies. He ate by himself, he slept by himself, and he had no communication with anybody during the 4 years he was there. When he left, he never went back, for obvious reasons. There is now a barracks dedicated to Benjamin O. Davis. Some of us had the opportunity to go to the dedication of that barracks. It is on the top of a hill, and it overlooks much of West Point. A tribute to a man that did not, even though they did nothing for him. He was a staunch leader. He made sure that his men did what they needed to do. If you did not protect the bombers, you went off on your own, you cannot fly for me anymore. All right? So it was very strict, and they looked up to that. He planned everything that needed to be done. There's another aspect of the Tuskegee Airmen that many people don't know about, is that they had a bomber group as well. The 477th Bombardment Group is what they were called. And they were trained on B-25s, and they received their pilots' licenses as TEs, twin engine pilots, rather than PE. PE, that was it. I forget the term, but it was still PE. Anyway, single engine, SE, okay. That was one engine, and those were the fighter pilots. All in all, Tuskegee airmen included the 900-plus pilots trained at Tuskegee and another 1,500-plus people who were the mechanics, cooks, nurses, grounds crew, and all of that went into Tuskegee. Anyone who was trained at Tuskegee is determined to be a Tuskegee Airman. Starting in 1941 through 1949, when it was merged into the United States Air Force, which was created in 1948. Yeah, all right. Those are the details about that. The B-25 was a much smaller bomber. It was meant not to carry heavy bombs and not to do an awful lot. It was able to do ground work as well. The sad part of it is they never got a chance to fight. They were trained in the United States, and they were the victims of segregation here. It continued to happen in their training as well. The officers that they had to work under, and I will give a little bit more information about that as we proceed, led to what is known as the Freeman Field Mutiny. And that was, again, where the airmen stood up for themselves, and it's a term that was developed from that, which is double victory. They fought the Axis powers and against fascism in Europe, and they fought against segregation at home. So they fought on two fronts, in Europe and at home in the United States. The fighters fought overseas, the bomber pilots fought over here, and their support was here in both places.
There's an old saying, you do not know from whence you come, you do not know where you are, you have no idea where you're going.
The Tuskegee Airmen's fight for civil rights was prior to Martin Luther King, prior to Rosa Parks.
The German prisoners of war, they had to not only fight segregation in the military, but they had to fight segregation in the United States. They came home to an ungrateful country.
This isn't a sudden recognition of, oh, this is what they did. The records had been there. And for the first 25 years after the war, nobody could get to them because the documents were classified. Nobody could write the stories.
We have tossed away so much talent because of our attitude on race and gender and so forth, that we're wasting our capabilities to compete with the world.
All we wanted was the opportunity to prove or disprove the fact that we could be taught to fly.
It is just not Black history, it is our history.
They talk about the greatest generation. They were the greatest generation.
The obstacles
Thank you. All right, so it's just a short clip. There's more you can find online, and we'll be more than happy to give you the link to that, or just Google Tuskegee Airmen, and you will be deluged with information about them. Some of it correct, and you will find out all of those things that aren't correct. Much of it is pretty good. Shortly, I'm going to show you an interview with Harold Brown. Harold Brown was a Tuskegee Airman. He just passed away within the past year, I believe it was. And he was also part of a team. You've seen Top Gun Maverick, you've seen Top Gun, you heard of that? Well, this group of pilots won the first Top Gun trophy in 1949. That trophy they won disappeared for 50 years. It just recently materialized again and was returned to the Tuskegee Airmen, rightfully so. But here's another fact about the Tuskegee Airmen that was hidden for so many years that has finally come to light. If you would play the Harold Brown interview, that would be very helpful.
We were all young guys. When we went in, all we wanted to do was just fly. And I wasn't thinking about we were doing anything important. And it wasn't until in my later years when I really started thinking about it and the significance of that whole experiment, as they refer to it, training these black guys to become pilots.
Right.
And then the success we had overseas. Little did I realize at the time that we were doing something that significant. And it wasn't until those years when things like this began to happen. And it dawned on us, well, boy, we are in the forefront of integrating this country. And perhaps our biggest legacy is what we really had to overcome to become pilots. Because this whole thing, it was felt that this big experiment was going to fail and fall flat on its face. They'll never make it as pilots. And that was really one of our biggest motivations, is that we cannot fail. We just can't.
So was it the sensation of flight that you enjoyed, or being able to control the airplane, or?
I don't know. I was flying an airplane, and after I had soloed, I said, I have achieved what I've always wanted to do, and from there on, it just got better and better. And the airplanes got bigger and faster. And the faster they got, the better it got. We generally thought we were invincible. Generally. And that was the general thing guys used to talk about it. We used to talk about it. No, they'll never shoot me. I can outfly any of them. You join up, fly your mission, eager beaver. You were hoping that you would run an enemy aircraft. Because we all used to say, if a bunch of enemy aircraft come up, that's DFC day, Distinguished Flying Cross day. We're going to get some victories. But we were eager beavers. I never had any apprehensions on, most of the flights. Granted, like on the one I was shot down, on your strafing mission, there's a risk involved, but that's in the back of your mind. I mean, that's the least on your mind. You're strafing ground targets, blowing up locomotives and all of the rest of it. And it isn't that you enjoy doing it, but you're doing your job.
Is there concern that those years and the Tuskegee Airmen will be forgotten in future? Are you a little concerned about that?
Well, we certainly hope not, and we hope that part of our legacy is all the things that we had to overcome. And we overcame an awful lot of obstacles.
So how do you look back on those years with the Tuskegee Airmen?
Those were the best years of my life, really. It was a good life. I wouldn't have traded for nothing in the world. I was fortunate, and I did look death just straight in the face as you can look at it. And I tell everyone, I said, but I survived. It was a good life. I've got no complaints.
Thank you. I wanted to show you that clip in particular because on the surface it looks like he really was interested, and his main interest was to fly and to fight. But with my association with the Tuskegee Airmen, the airmen that I met, and interviews and doing lots of research, I found that not only were they excellent pilots, but the biggest thing that was their attribute was their camaraderie. They stuck together no matter what. They faced so many things. They faced everything that was against them. At Tuskegee, they said they couldn't leave the base because Tuskegee, Alabama was extremely prejudiced. They were safer on the base than anywhere else, so they stayed there. Would you imagine being trained in a facility in this room, knowing that if you step outside, your life is in danger? And they faced that anyway, and they said, I'm going to accomplish this. He wanted to fly. Mr. Johnson, who lived in Glen Cove and passed away several years ago, said he watched the planes fly overhead from Mitchell Field. And he said, that's where I want to be. Every one of these individuals and groups said they wanted to be a part of this effort to end what was happening in Europe, even though they understood that it may not end here. But they said, I'm going to do my part, and I'm being denied that chance. They stood up for what they thought they knew they could do. They stood up for so many things that still exist. And they stuck together no matter what. The 477th, the Freeman Field Mutiny, they went through something there, and the short version is they were excluded from the officers club. Anyone who got their pilot's license was an officer. The white officers did not salute them. They refused. The enlisted men refused to salute them. But they kept going no matter what. The commander of the base they were in said, you're not allowed in the officers club, so we're going to make a separate one for you. They have, and we're going to call that the training facility. The training facility was for them. It was pretty much, I'll say, a closet. And they said, no, that's not going to happen. The commander of that base got some flack from the Army. So he said, okay, I'll have them sign some papers that it's okay. 100 of them said, I'm not signing it. It's time of war. It's a disobedience of order, an order. It's called mutiny, treason, and it is possibly punishable by imprisonment or death because during the war. They said, I'm not signing. They were imprisoned, moved to another facility, surrounded by barbed wire. Thanks to the efforts of the NAACP and other civil rights groups, all but 3 were released. 2 were exonerated. 1, Terry, wasn't pardoned, didn't get his status back until the 1990s. And we're talking about from 1945. He was a felon. So you know what that means. He couldn't hold a job, he couldn't get this, he couldn't get that. But they stuck it out no matter what. And that's togetherness. They said, we're fighting for this, we're fighting for an awful lot. That's my brief history of the Tuskegee Airmen. I know Dr. Defour has much more to offer. Yes, so I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Defour. If you would like to see me later, that's fine. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
Okay, so I just want to thank again Reynard for that wonderful presentation on the Tuskegee Airmen. What I want to talk about a bit is another group. We know that their experiences have been hidden from view, but another aspect of it who really have not been unsung are the women who served, supported, and soared during World War II, because they were actually women pilots. They didn't get to go overseas and do missions, but they were part of women who were part of the Tuskegee experience. Okay, so I'm gonna just skip ahead and focus on one particular group to start. Okay, you can go ahead. And so one of the things I wanted to talk about, like, who are these women? As I said, pilots, yes, pilots, nurses, mechanics, clerks, instructors. And I believe Pat's mother was a photographer, so they played many, many, many roles. So I want to talk about one group of women to start with, and those are the nurses. So you can go to the next one. So there were as many as 28 women who served, from the Army Nurse Air Corps who were on staff at the Tuskegee Base Hospital. And one of the interesting things about the women were that the nurses were actually officers. The men who were at Tuskegee were trainees. So as a result of that, they were not supposed to intermingle, okay? Because what is that called? Okay, if you're working or talking to a subordinate. So the men would suddenly get sick and go to the hospital so they can talk with the nurses. Okay, just a hidden fact. So let's go to the next slide. So, but one of these women was Della Rainey. And so she was actually the first Black nurse that was commissioned by the U.S. Army Nurses Corps. And so she was the first one accepted into the Army Nurses Corps. She was the first African American commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Army Nurses Corps. And she was the first African American nurse to be promoted to captain. And she was actually the chief nurse at the Army airfield. Somebody who's written a lot about the nurses is Pia Jordan, whose mother was a nurse, and like many of us who had families that were attached to the Tuskegee Airmen, our parents never talked about it. So she didn't find out until much later. And then her mother started talking to her about the nurses and their experiences. And then after that, she started going out and interviewing as many of the nurses that were left. And she has a book, and we can direct you to that. And then there's a lot of material on YouTube where she's actually talking about her interviews with the nurses. So the nurses were one large group who were very important, because they took care of the men when they were actually sick. And they weren't allowed also to treat anybody else but Black service members. But they could not treat white staff or anything of that nature. Okay, so the next group were also critically important are, again, people who were behind the scenes, the women who were in operations, women who were in administration. And as you pointed out, in order for the airmen to do what they did, you had to have accurate records. They had to have scheduling, and there had to be communications that happened. And so they were critical in that. So they were a huge part of the support staff that were hidden from view. So let me go to the next one. Next slide. This is one of the women who was very important in terms of working behind the scenes and being part of the support staff. But she was also the first Black woman in Alabama to earn a pilot's license. And she served in flight operations and actually continued flying after the war and actually mentored many African-American women into becoming pilots. And she was actually trained by the flight instructor that Reynard mentioned earlier, Chief Anderson, Charles Anderson. So she was part of that first class of the Civil Pilots Training Program, getting her license in 1942. But because of, one, she was a woman, and second, being Black, she could not get advanced flying training until after she left. And could not join the WASPs either, because they were not admitting Black women. After the war, she was, they had invited her to become a WASP, but during that, she could not. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so the other group of women who were very important were the people back at home, wives, mothers, volunteers, and getting letters. Those things were very important. And so they kept the Tuskegee Airmen definitely tied to home and to their community. And actually, a lot of the airmen sometimes met their wives during the time that they were training, but they could not get married until after they finished their training, because you had to be single actually to go through training. But their background, being behind the scenes, was often critical. Now we have one famous woman, go to the next slide, who was very important for keeping morale up, Lena Horne. And so when she actually made her transition and passed away, the airmen were invited to her funeral here in New York. And I actually had the opportunity to actually attend her funeral, because she talked about how important, because we knew that she was also, in the civil rights movement, how important she felt her being able to entertain the troops was to helping them in terms of their morale. Okay, well, we're going to go to the next slide to look at the next group of critical women that were part of this war effort. So often when they show, a lot of you have seen the picture of Rosie the Riveter. We didn't see this Rosie, but there were so many of the Rosies that were actually black women, thousands of them. So they built airplanes, tanks, ships, and they did a lot of the skilled labor. And they did a lot of the work that also, the white women were doing as well, but they were in segregated spaces and getting less money. But they were also critical to the war effort. And without the ground crews, the airmen would not have been able to fly. So just go to the next picture. It's just another example of a Rosie, okay? And then we're gonna move and bring it home. Because although we often talk about this history as being distant from us, let me show you one of the Rosies. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, next, yeah. Yeah, go next, yeah. So this person is actually another Mildred Carter who is part of our chapter, who was married to Floyd Carter, a documented Tuskegee. This is after my father, by the way. She was a Rosie, the Riveter. And so she was on Tuskegee Airfield, actually putting those planes together and helping carry the airmen to victory. That's another story of them, people meeting at Tuskegee Airfield, this couple right here. Okay, so Mildred Carter, one of our local, she was a Claude B. Govan chapter member. Okay, so she's one of the women who were putting those planes together, the engineers, the technicians, the welders, all of those who often don't experience or get the same recognition. Let's go to the next person who's also local. And this was Nancy Lieutenant Cologne. And as you can see, she made her transition actually this year. And she was one of the first black nurses when the Air Corps integrated with the U.S. Air Force. And the other important thing about Dr. Cologne was that she's the first woman and only woman to be president of the National Tuskegee Airmen Organization. Okay, so you're looking at her, she's the only one. Okay, and so as I wrap up, let me show you some of our other local heroes who've made tremendous contributions. So we're coming now down to current history. Let's go to this. Turn on, next slide, legacy continues, go ahead. So here we have two of our important to our history, and they're still with us, of course. We have Pat Terrelon, who was our president for a long, long time, and has helped this chapter thrive and grow. But she also served on the national board of the Tuskegee Airmen as one of the Eastern Regional representatives. Here we have Mrs. Amelia Montgomery in front of Dabney Montgomery, who also is part of our chapter and is currently serving as one of the members of the Heritage Committee. And she's had a number of roles in this organization, both locally and nationally. I'm trying to think of offhand, but I'm just trying to go really quick to get so that we can move on to the next set of speakers. So part of what I want us to see that our history isn't distant, it's local, it's still thriving. Okay, so let's just go next. So all I'm saying here is that over time, the women in the Tuskegee Airmen have faced racism, sexism, but they still thrive. They kept their dignity, and they move forward. They move forward. And so, as it says on the next slide, we can go quickly, that the current women that are in aviation and in the military actually walk in the footsteps of the women who came before. The current organizations like Sisters of the Skies, they're walking in the footsteps of these women from so many years ago. And then next, just a couple of things. So what did we learn from today? You know, all of them learned, even when you're in doubt, you still have courage. They're all committed to their community. They all have faith. You know, I'm there, I'm working. I don't see what's happening now, but it's going to have an impact in the future. And the other thing is pointing out that not all of the people who made significant contributions to the Tuskegee Airmen effort were pilots. The support staff was also critical. And finally, just, you know, we can go quicker, yeah. I just want to say thanks. We'll go beyond that. So that this, again, as we remember the pilots and male support staff and ground crew, I just want us to remember the women who also served, the nurses, the clerks, the mechanics, the pilots, the engineers, but also that we're not just supporting history. You know, they're all pioneers. And so we just want to know, courage has no gender, you know, and excellence has no limits. So that's all I have to say. Mm-hmm. That was quick.
Mentioned that she pointed out her dad. Her dad was a Tuskegee Airman. Mm-hmm. He was also a long-term member of our chapter and our treasurer forever. Oh, yeah. We never had to worry about our money. And Dr. Defour, in fact, is our parliamentarian. So she makes sure that we do things by the rules. And in terms of women, I was just at the National Convention, and I would guess that more than half of those attending the National Convention were women. So women were important then, they're important now, and they birth us, so it's so important. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. That's our presentation on the Tuskegee Airmen. And if you want to learn more, you have an opportunity. We actually have some books outside that you can buy. They're on sale for the cheap price of $10. And you can join our chapter, which meets at Riverton every other Saturday. And it's certainly a way to come and learn more about Tuskegee Airmen. Also, we're hoping to get our flight program up again shortly, which would mean we'll be able to train young people to get a certain level of training in how to fly planes. There's a simulator in this building that we hope to be using and working with. And Major Padron is going to work with us on that, on training our young people. And then we're going to get them in the sky if we have the funds for that, and we're working on getting those funds now. That's one reason why we're selling T-shirts and selling other things, to try to get the money that we need to make sure that we can give back. Nothing goes in our pockets, it goes into our program. Now, next part of our program is really exciting because you saw our opening, and our opening was provided by the Scouts of Riverton. They were started by the veterans that came back from World War II. They were started across the street. They weren't just Riverton kids, they were community kids. Our current Scoutmaster is here right now, Shawn Chin-Chance, and he's going to give you some background on the Scouts. Thank you, Judge.
We good? All right. Thanks again, Judge. My name is, again, Shawn Chin-Chance. I'm the Scoutmaster for Troop 163. As Judge mentioned, we are not only a troop, but also a pack, and we are based out in Riverton. Just want to quickly go over a couple of things in terms of our troop, but scouting in general. Next slide real quick. So, do you recognize anyone here? Anyone look familiar? Do you think any of these folks were, which one of these folks think were scouts at one point? Next slide. And how about these ladies? Do you know anyone here? Do you think any of those were, I'm going to say Girl Scouts, but kind of the same umbrella, but think about that. Next slide. So if you thought of Detroit Lions running back David Montgomery, then you're correct. He was a scout. He was all the way to Eagle Scout. And next slide. But you know, even that individual, the reality is all of them were scouts, right? All of them at some point in their journey was part of the scouting program. It goes to show you that Scouting is an opportunity for you to branch off and grow, and you can be pretty much anything, right? It's an opportunity to kind of discover and find a new way to explore your inner path and interest. Next slide, please. So the motto is prepared for life. And so what is scouting? Scouting is leadership. It's leadership in allowing young people to be able to work with adults and shape what their future is, right? It's really empowering them to take ownership, not only of themselves, but also teaching other young people how to thrive and be successful. It's confidence, it's tenacity. Many of our scouts, as you can see today, came up and did the opening ceremony. They're encouraged to take leadership, to take an active role in doing things that they're not comfortable with, to build that level of confidence. It's also fun. We do camping trips. We go out and just do, even just to kind of come together in the courtyard, playing Gaga pit or playing basketball. Just running around is the idea about fellowship. It's about coming together and having fun and being adventurous. It's learning to do things with your hands. Many of our scouts obviously in school all day. They're in front of a teacher. They're constantly talking about math, science. But what's nice about scouting is those same principles, those same things are being done in a more interactive and engaging way. They're using their hands. They learn about flight. They learn about the nature and sort of the atmosphere by actually going out there and being involved in those activities. It's character and leadership. We hold our scouts to a very high standards, and they should hold themselves to high standards. They hold the adults who work with them at high standards. And so it's about building strong characters, it's about building leadership skills for young people. So again, scouting is preparing youth for life with fun, friends, and long life values. Next slide, please. It's adventurous. The quick quote is by Michael Jordan, "Don't be afraid to fail, be afraid not to try." As you can see, many of our scouts go camping. We empower them to do everything from planning the trips, to cooking the meals, to setting their tents up, to picking a campsite. Part of it is owning the adventure. We're here as adults to mentor them. We're not here to kind of take the charge, but really to help them discover, as you can see here. And part of that opportunity is the adventurous things, right? It's discovering new things and being uncomfortable. And that's the fun part about scouting. Next slide, please. Again, it's leadership. The essence behind scouting is it's young adults taking ownership of their learning. But not only their learning, but also passing information to other scouts, other young people. And as you can see here, many of our scouts, the skills they learn in their journey as a scout, from scout all the way through Eagle Scout, is showing other young people those same skills, whether it's talking about their journey, whether it's actually showing them an activity. As you can see here, a couple of scouts talking how to make a meal at campsite, how to do first aid, or even just how to build a fire. Those are the skills that they learn themselves, have mastered, and they themselves will pass on to other scouts. Next slide, please. It's also about service. It's not just thinking about yourself. It's not about learning to do things yourself, but it's also giving back. And so Scouts is about service. It's about doing for others. As you can see, many of our Scouts, because we're Riverton, it's a big part of our responsibility, making sure that our community is clean and is taken care of. We do a great job every year. Veterans Day this weekend, we're going to do our best to make sure that our complex, our flagpole is there. We're going to honor our veterans. We talked about, obviously, the scouting program in Riverton really was birthed from our veterans coming back. Our Tuskegee veterans coming back, and wanted to make sure that there was a sense of community and family, and many of their children became part of the scouting program. And we see the same thing today. Many of the scouts who are in our program are from Riverton. Next slide, please. Again, the quote from Benjamin Franklin: "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I will learn." Every aspect of the scouting journey is a scout doing for themselves. As you can see here, many of our scouts, we were talking about how to make a meal, whether it's making a meal at home, whether it's making a meal at campsite, how to budget to get the ingredients, how to go shopping, how to find those items, and how to actually, in an emergency, do something, right? Whether it's first aid, whether it's to give CPR, whether it's to bandage someone's arm or put a splint in. It's really about them learning those things hands-on, engaging every day. Next slide, please. again, kind of going back, a little bit of history, again, behind Troop 163. As Judge mentioned, at the end of World War II, 1945, a lot of the veterans, both Tuskegee Airmen and other veterans in different armed services, came back home, and just like everywhere else, there's discrimination. Riverton, as a development, was not made because someone wanted out of goodness of their heart to build it. It was forced upon them. And part because our veterans weren't allowed to go to Stuyvesant or Parkchester. And so they came back to Riverton, right? That was their home. And they felt the need to have their kids maintain the same level of camaraderie that they felt as part of the service, whether it's Tuskegee. And they created Troop Pack 163. Over the years, unfortunately, due to the shift in dynamics, shift in population changes, the scout program at Riverton faded away. But thanks to Judge Marc Whiten and other leaders, they brought it back in 2022, and they came on board with the support of the Riverton development, rechartered Troop Pack 163. My kids are in the troop. Both my daughter and son is in the troop. Many of the scouts here are from the community, and it's a legacy reborn. It's an opportunity for us to continue this journey of self-discovery for our young people. We've been for the last it's gonna be our 4th year as a troop and pack, and it just goes to show you that this is going to be something that's going to grow tremendously over years to come. Next slide, please. Again, scouting is an opportunity where scouts get to build character, confidence. They're having fun. They're becoming a leader. They're experiencing adventures. They're being uncomfortable, and they're making lifelong friends. Right? It's not just a program. It's preparing our young people for life. It's encouraging them. It's giving them the skills so they can thrive when the adults are not here. That's the essence of scouting, so that they become empowered to be leaders of themselves, but also the community they're involved with. As you can see here, many of our kids, this is our complex, right? Kids playing gaga pit in the courtyard. Kids going summer camping, doing archery or fishing in the pond. Again, many of our kids, this is probably the first time, but it's uncomfortable. But they're thriving in that space. Next slide, please. Again, some key takeaways. One of the nice things you'll probably see outside is a lot of our scouts, as they move from the pack to the troop, they're discovering things that they may not know about themselves. They're discovering new skills. They're discovering new interests. One of those big things is about merit badges. And a lot of our scouts go to whether it's merit badge rallies, whether it's one of our more experienced adults coming in and sharing their expertise. They're earning these badges. They're earning something that they've never gotten before, a new skill. They're getting confidence. They're learning how to engage with the world. They learn to engage with adults, with themselves, with their peers in a positive and constructive way. They're developing leadership skills. They're knowing how to, share their ideas. They learn how to be confident out and engage and participate in just, life in general. And they're learning how to give back. They learn how it's not just about themselves, but how to have an effect on the community, right? And they're being in the outdoors. Scouting is in the outdoors. Whether it's hiking in the Palisades, whether it's going to the Intrepid, whether it's camping at Alpine, whether it's camping at Kiowa, it's always about being outside and just having fun. They're still young people. It's also about having fun and developing survival skills. Next slide, please. So, I just want to encourage, if you know someone, a young person, whether it's at Riverton or in the surrounding area, to join. Encourage them to be part of it. Scouting is a co-ed program. It's both boys and girls. We run from age from kindergarten all the way through high school. So there's always an opportunity where our young people can be involved with scouting. We meet on Wednesdays, so they can either check out our website, rivertonscouting163.org. They can follow us on Instagram. We're trying to be hip a little bit here and there. At Harlem Scouts 163, or they can scan the QR code. Next slide, please. We do have a lot of stuff outside in terms of materials, so any parents are here who want to learn more information, please get that information. So again, thank you for supporting Riverton Scouting. Where every child, again, adventure begins. This is actually one of the pictures we had where we dedicated a plaque for our World War II veterans. If you go to the complex, you see a huge plaque in the front. That was part of the effort between the Tuskegee Airmen Group and the Scout and Harlem Archives. Again, we want to honor our legacy. We want to make sure that legacy lives on, and that only happens when we encourage our young people to learn and be active in that space. So again, thank you all for listening to me. And again, there's more stuff outside if you want to learn more about Troop Impact 163.
My name is Glenn Hunter. Today I'm representing the Harlem Cultural Archives Historical Society. I can't use my cafeteria voice like when I was in school? All right, I'll use the microphone. Okay, thank you, Judge. Just to tie a bunch of things together, I went to this school, I was in the first kindergarten class in 1956. I was also a member of Troop 163 when it was here, and we had our meetings in this building in the gymnasium. So what I wanted to do was give you a little bit of an idea of how we got started. Several years back in, I think it was 2007, I believe it was, my good friend Ken Sargent, he went to this school as well, and my brother, Dr. Keith Hunter, we decided at one of our reunions that we should do a history on the Riverton. So we decided to look for a historical society to get some information and found out that there was none, so we started one. So over the years, we've been gathering material and doing oral history interviews, and I have a short little clip that can summarize it much better than I can. So if you're ready.
Drop me off in Harlem, yeah, good old Harlem. You have your fun under the Harlem sun, so drop me off in Harlem.
The Harlem Cultural Archives was chartered in 2008 for the purpose of collecting and sharing the history of Harlem with accuracy and integrity. We view the collection of oral history to be vital to that process and have conducted over 200 interviews since we started. The West Harlem Development Corporation has been a significant supporter in this pursuit. We believe that Harlem's architecture, infrastructure, and its brilliant creators are important. For this reason, we are also active participants in the preservation community and have vigorously argued against the destruction of historically significant spaces. In line with this notion, we have been actively engaged in a program of installing historic markers through street co-naming and other means to ensure that significant contributors to the Harlem experience will not be forgotten. We've also staged a host of Lasting Legacies talks in tribute to some of our more distinguished luminaries. Our consistent efforts have garnered the attention of significant players in the film and academic communities and have recently facilitated our consulting role in the Columbia University Living in America project at the new Lenfest Center. Likewise, we consulted with producer Questlove on his Sundance-bound film Summer of Soul, a documentary about the Harlem Cultural Festival, which drew 300,000 people in the summer of 1969. As you can clearly see, we are strongly invested in making Harlem's history available through geo and QR coding, by which visitors to the village may immerse themselves in the Harlem experience at their leisure with commonly available handheld devices. Engaging the interests of young historians is of vital importance to us, and accordingly, we have proposed several History on My Block programs at neighborhood schools. We are also very proud of our role as the custodians of the Cal Ramsey Scholarship Fund, which has, over the years, awarded upwards of 50 students stipends of $1,000 apiece.
Hi, my name is Jezebel Vargas, and I would like to thank the Calvin Ramsey Scholarship Foundation for founding me a scholarship that will go towards my tuition. I am majoring in nursing, and I currently attend CUNY Lehman College. Thank you.
As part of our various preservation activities, we have had occasion over the years to sponsor a concert or two, particularly in tribute to the great Dr. Billy Taylor. At present, our short-term goals include the resumption of our oral history and discussion series programs, the completion of 2 documentaries that are in progress, as well as a fuller implementation of our QR and geocoding programs.
I want to thank my brother from another mother, Ken Sargent, for putting that together. Like I said, he attended this school from elementary school, his elementary school years, and he lived across the street. Another person I'd like to acknowledge is a gentleman by the name of Dudley Glass. Dudley Glass was a neighbor of mine in Riverton. His son Dexter and Dudley were good friends of mine, and he was a member of the Tuskegee Airmen. He was a scoutmaster of Troop 163 when it was when it first started. He was one of the scoutmasters. He wasn't the first, but he did hold that position for a long time. And we put together something to shout him out a little bit because he was very significant, and he made an impact on not just the youth of America, but in public service as well. So I'd like to show a clip of him.
Hello, my name is Dudley Maurice Glass. My parents were Una and Percival Glass. I had a brother, Ronald, and a sister, Linda, and we were raised in Harlem. As a young man, I attended Peter Cooper Jr. High School and eventually DeWitt Clinton High School in the Bronx. After school, I joined a WPA program in upstate New York, where I learned about conservation and forestry management. It was there that I first gained my love of the great outdoors. In the early 40s, I was drafted into the Army, and after a battery of tests, I qualified for pre-flight training in the Air Force. Upon completion of navigator training, I was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the 477th Bombardment Group, which was part of the prestigious Tuskegee Air Corps. I received an honorable discharge, despite having participated in the Freeman Field Mutiny. We were all commissioned officers, and we were not trying to put up with any Jim Crow foolishness. Around 100 of us were brought up on charges, but Truman knew we were right, so all but one of us escaped from punishment. After active duty, I remained in service, achieving the rank of captain. On January 1, 1947, I was appointed to the New York Fire Department as a probie in Engine Company 91 in East Harlem. It was kinda dicey there for a while. Everybody knows how evil some of those so-called good old boys can be. They hazed me like crazy for about a year, but they eventually got over it. They saw that I was every bit as capable as them and finally came to terms with me. In '48, I married Daisy Phillips and we took up residence in the newly completed Riverton houses in Harlem. It was like an oasis there, and we found a like-minded community of overachievers, where we fit right in. We soon had 2 sons, Dudley Jr. in 1951 and Dexter in 1953. We eventually separated, but remained good friends through it all. I took to the fire department like a fish to water. Determination, discipline, and scholarship led me up through the ranks from lieutenant to captain and battalion chief, and I was borough commander when the whole of the Bronx was said to be burning in the 1970s. Physical conditioning was always important to me, and my passion was running. I always felt like I was in the zone when I was pounding the pavement. Over the years, I ran and swam the marathon many times and was a founding member of the New York Road Runners Association. I retired from the fire department on September 25, 1989 and was proud of my record of service, but I was most proud of my status as a community role model, serving the young men of Central Harlem as a scoutmaster in Troop 163. There, I had the opportunity to equip the next generation with the skills they would need to survive and prosper. Many of my scouting minions have gone on to do great things in the far reaches of the world.
One of the things that Mr. Glass didn't mention is that he would take time out of his time off and taught many of us how to swim at the bathhouse. So these are the types of things that he did on his spare time. What I'd like to do is show a clip of a film that we started to screen as a result of this same reunion that I was telling you about, and the idea that we should have a documentary about the Riverton. And it's a work in progress, but hopefully you can give you a little background history on, our view of the Riverton.
Located at a crook in the Harlem River bordered by a sanitation department facility to the north and a matrix of coal yards along the river's edge to the east, Riverton was metropolitan life's unwanted stepchild. Built in 1947, it was offered up as a solution to housing problems that had been brewing in Harlem since the 1930s. Returning war vets and their families, coupled with newcomers from the South and the Caribbean, had burdened the housing stock to the point of crisis. Facing various lawsuits, Metropolitan, with the support of construction czar Robert Moses, prevailed in its desire to keep its properties lily white.
We were living on the west side, but we only had a kitchenette, and we had a young son, my son Kenneth, and we didn't have a private kitchen nor a private bath. And in that area on the west side, they were not renting to blacks. I would go to the building, and one building I will never forget, the super met me, and he was black. And he told me to my face, we don't rent to colored in here.
Years later, with the benefit of a 25-year tax abatement, Metropolitan eventually committed to build Riverton, its Jim Crow counterpart to the other 3 communities. But this is not a story of victimization, although it very well could be. Instead, it is a story of a community that took lemons and made lemonade.
My name is Constance Wright, and I've had a varied career in Harlem, having had the fortune also of having been born here. I became aware of Riverton after I became an adult, and World War II had occurred and ended. I was married and looking for what we all designated as a decent apartment in those days. And then Riverton began to be the operative word. I was among the first 3 tenants on the first moving day to occupy the, and there was great joy, there was high emotions, the this great event was taking place. It shows you the sorry state of race relations. But we enjoyed it. A triumph is a triumph, nevertheless.
The one thing about it is when the Riverton was being built by, or put together by Metropolitan, they had selected a Mr. Clifford Alexander to put it together to be the resident manager. He in turn handpicked out, I think, the 1,214 clients in this development. He handpicked the physicians and he handpicked all the professionals. Then he handpicked the people to live in the development.
They came up to visit you where you lived, and they went through your apartment, and they looked in every room to see how you kept house. And they made their notes and came to their decisions.
I remember Puggy Bell was one of them. Check you out, see what sort of a housekeeper you were. They used to come on Sundays, I remember, and visit.
At that time, they were really screening people very carefully because they wanted a very special kind of grouping of people who had certain aspects of education, certain aspects of other things that were good for the community. And they tried to put a mix of people who have a variety of skills and experiences and so forth, and put them in a place where it was really a neighborhood.
As I read little blurbs about people who had lived in Riverton at one time, I was like, oh, I used to babysit for them, but I didn't know that's who they were, And Eddie Hayward lived in Riverton.
Eddie Hayward lived in the same building I lived in.
That's right.
Right.
I was like, and Billy Eckstein lived over in 2171 for a short period.
It was a community that was very, very close-knit. You had some great, fabulously bright, ambitious, very accomplished people that were not only there, but have come out of the Riverton. Fritz Alexander and Dave Dinkins, they lived, I believe it was 2190 Madison Avenue.
A lot of folks came out of the Riverton. The Riverton was Metropolitan's uptown place. They had downtown, they had Peter Cooper Village and Stuyvesant Town, and uptown Riverton. I used to tell people that Riverton was so well maintained that if 2 snowflakes fell, there were 5 people out there with shovels cleaning it up. And it was so very well maintained, and it is to this day.
We really wanted a nice place to raise our child. We visited over there several times, and we noticed the playground, the apartment. It was just like heaven. We had a difficult time getting into Riverton. My parents were policy holders in Pittsburgh during the Depression, and they had 5 children, and all of us had a policy, including themselves. I think it opened up in 1947. Now this is 10 years later, and people are still clamoring to get into Riverton. And finally, it did happen. And I'm going to tell you, we finally got the apartment. The people came to visit us where we were living. To see, I guess, if we were clean, to see if we were acceptable. And so finally we were given a date to move. And I remember having Kenneth in the carriage, and I rolled from 113th Street between Broadway and Riverside Drive all the way over to Riverton. I had the keys to the apartment. I just wanted to look at it. It was like a mansion. And if you've come from a kitchenette, you can imagine what a 2-bedroom apartment is like. After staying in the apartment that afternoon, I didn't want to go back. And I just decided I would spend the night there. I never went back to the kitchenette except to move.
The couple that helped us get in were musicians. It was John Collins, the wonderful guitarist who played with Nat Cole. And he had been my guitarist. We had worked together on a lot of things before he went with Nat Cole. And so he
He said, well, as long as if you're going to get married, man, I mean, come on up here. Maybe we could help you get a better place. This was the possibility to have our own place and really bring up a family, and it was just what we did. I mean, the Riverton had concert singers there. We had all kinds. Paul Robeson's son was living there, and so he would come by to see us. I don't know. It was a very exciting place to be in.
I think also the men in Riverton, they help support the young.
I hope you guys got a snapshot of what it was like to grow up around here. I see a couple of my neighbors who grew up here, Dr. Defour, my friend Dennis Leach, and I lived in the same building, Dennis Skinner, Marc Whiten. We all grew up here, and I think it kind of worked out, the fact that we all came together up here, and I'm not going to rag somewhere else, but maybe we wouldn't have been able to achieve and look out for one another if we would spread out in Stuyvesant Town or Cooper. I don't know if that would have had the same result. But I just wanted to tie everything together. The archives came out of Riverton. The Boy Scouts, a lot of us were from Riverton, even though some of the scouts were from outside of Riverton. But just wanted to show you how good it makes me feel when I think about all of these experiences. And I'm glad that Marc was able to do the heavy lifting. And please give him a round of applause. Not just for reinstating the troop, but also to reinvigorate the legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen. I want to thank you guys for coming. Hopefully that's on Zoom. We have an appreciation of this, and hopefully it's being recorded. And I want to thank Marc once again. I think he wants to say a few words.
Yeah, I'm going to also ask, we have a representative from PS 197 we'd like to have come up. It's going to be a short video on 197 and the wonderful programs that it offers. But before we get to that program, over here, I know you want to hide, but I love that she's wearing a Hillman
Sorry.
College, reminds me of the Huxtables. What we're going to be doing is, before we have that video, we really want to thank you for having us here. It's meant a lot to have your help in putting this all together, your coordination. It might have been better attended, and maybe the next time, if folks hear about how well this one went, there'll be more people here the next time. Step on forward. You're not hiding. Miss Spann is the principal, and Glenn and I met with her. Why don't you come on up here, Glenn? Glenn, you hiding? Glenn was my senior patrol leader in Troop 163 under Dudley Glass, by the way. And going to be presenting a challenge coin to Miss Spann and to PS 197. This is the coin. They are for sale, by the way, out front for $30. Their keepsake that is kind of special. On the one side, it has the Claude B. Govan and the metal logo of our chapter. On the back, the 3 airplanes that the Tuskegee Airmen flew, and our website, by the way. But what's special about this coin, it's called a challenge coin. And these coins are used in the military, especially as commemorative coins that are usually held by military men and women in their units. They are awarded to people who are especially important to them. They are kept, they are honored, they are remembrances of commitment, of legacy, of duty, honor, and country, and of the spirit that makes things work. They're called challenge coins because when you give it to someone, it means that Number one, that they've met the challenge of all that was expected of them, and that they will continue that challenge on. PS 197, the span, this whole institution has met the challenge of looking to bring our community together to help the Scouts, Tuskegee, Harlem Cultural Archives, any institution that is doing what is right to improve our situation, our circumstances, and make our community strong. This community has such a long history. It can't be lost. It can't be beaten down. And as long as we have the commitment of institutions like 197, where I went to school as well, then we can't lose. So I'm very happy to present you with this challenge coin, because 197, you have earned it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll make sure Ms. Span gets, I'll make sure she shares it with the entire school. And I hope that you enjoy this video. PS 197.
Thank you very much.
197 is a special school. This is the hub. It's been here since 1956. You can feel the culture of the school. There's always somebody greeting you at the front door. You're gonna hear music playing in the hallways throughout the school to make people feel good, feel upbeat. And then you're gonna just see a good quality of life here. The kids go swimming. You'll see them in the hallways reading books. You'll see them playing an instrument. You'll see them growing vegetables. You'll see them working out resolutions with each other. So it's apparent to anybody that comes to the school that I want my child to come here.
One thing that makes me proud to come to this school is that I know that we are working towards building the future. In that, I say that we invest every day in students.
The value in having a co-teaching team is that this isn't a singular career. I think having a partner to bounce ideas off really helps to make a difference for the children in their learning.
And you should see the things and opportunities that we give our students to be better and competitive with other schools.
We are able to come up with the most amazing things for our students and families. We are able to be so resourceful and resilient. We really make something out of nothing.
You see a lot of things change over time, but a lot of things that have not changed are the circumstances. And when you see the faces of the kids and you think about where they're gonna be in 15 years, you wanna do whatever you can do to make sure that they have a good start in life.
Our team is really good at being insightful and responsive to the needs of our students.
We're a family here at 197. Makes it worth coming to every day because it's not just about us, it's about the children. And
you're only not a member of the classroom, but a member of the entire school and a member of the Harlem community as well.
So everybody here knows every student, the teachers know every family, the families know every teacher. And this is a generational school, so we do whatever we have to do for each other. And I think we are the definition of a community here at our school. And so one thing I've always wanted to do for my school community is to make it a vocational school. My goal is always to get the kids a good foundation for a good quality of life. If you get enough skills, if you get enough exposure to things in the world that will make you happy, I think that that is the key for the students to have success when they become adults. My name is Principal Natasha Span. I am the proud principal of PS 197 Harlem, New York. Please come and join us, join our community.